as you know. Today we're going to think about the specific choices she makes and what impact they have on us. Do we think that her decisions are the ones that we would make if we were the author or not? All right? So you're going to be getting this handout, and we're going to do the first one together. We're going to think about the narrative style of two of the sisters who speak directly to us in first person. So raise your hand if you know what first person narration means, based on what we learned during our narrative writing unit. What does it mean to write in first person? All right. Natalie, what does it mean to write in first person?
From your perspective.
Rosen, Natalie. Go ahead, Natalie. Exactly, what you feel directly to the reader. So, Natalie, you would say, exactly. All right, good. So, we are hearing a couple authors, or a couple narrators in this book talk in first person. Three more? Okay. You need three more too, Will? All right. So we want to think first about what this does to us, that it's in first-person narration. So I want you to be copying this first row together. We're going to do the other rows in partner. All right? So the first is, in the leftmost column, we are listing out different styles from the book. All right, we talked about one of the styles during our Do Now. We're listing out all the different choices the author makes. All right? In the second column, we are thinking about what meaning this is intended to have for the reader. Why did the author do this? And in the final column, we're evaluating how well the author did this, whether they actually did it successfully or not. Okay? So we're going to try the first one together. So one element is the first-person narration of Patria and Minerva. Whenever we read a chapter about Minerva or Patria, it comes directly from them. They say, I did this, I was scared. They talk about their feelings, as some of us talked about in our Do Now. So here we see that there's a first-person narration. The author decided to do this. Second column. Selena, read to me what it says in the second column for the first-person narration of Patria and Minerva. Where it starts with the author. So in the second column, the first row, it says the author wants.
Ours don't say that. I don't know what.
It doesn't? All right, you're right. I'm sorry about that. I'm waiting for it to come up. So I will read it. So in the second column, we're talking about what the author wants. All right? Based on the fact that they give first-person narration. What do you think the author wants to do? Based on the fact that they gave us first-person narration. Kadeem, for Patria and Minerva, why would the author choose to write it from their perspective?
Probably so that you can see like their emotions, like how see things through their eyes.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, good. So we hear like all the details of their marriages, of their fear about the government, all the details that are going on in their head, all of their feelings. We see that because they're telling it directly to us. Okay? It would be really different if the author was telling it in third person and explaining. Good. So in the second column, sorry about this. For some reason, it's not. In the second column, I want you to write a summary of that. So I want you to write, the author wants us to see events from their point of view. Because that's basically why the author would write it in first person. Okay? There we go. So this middle column right here, I'm zoomed into it. The author wants us to know what these women are going through from their own perspective. So kind of a summary of what Kadeem shared. So once we have figured out a style element, which is this first person narration, and what the author wants us to know, like why the author would do this. We're going to think about whether we think it was successful. We're evaluating the effect it had on us as a reader. All right? So this final column, my opinion, is that the reader empathizes with the character telling the story and sees events from his point of view or her point of view. All right? So I think that it is effective the way the author tells it from their perspective. So you're writing these two things down as an example of how we're going to fill out this chart. We're going to do the next few in pairs. So the second one on your chart is the same question as we talked about for our do now, which is that Maria Theresa writes in a diary. All right, that's one decision the author made. She could have told us about Maria Theresa's life through the perspective of her mother, or she could have told it from the perspective of a guard in prison, or she could have just told us about Minerva without doing it from a character's perspective. Why would she have us learn about Maria Theresa from her diary? All right, so I'm going to scoot back over here. So the diary style of Maria Theresa you have on your chart, we're filling out the next two columns. So first, let's just look at how the elements intended to create meaning. What do we think the author wanted to do? All right? So together in the last class, we came up with the fact that we thought the author wanted us to understand her experience inside prison, so we felt sympathetic towards her. We hear kind of each event that happens in detail, from her meeting that woman who's really different from her, to her kind of challenging Minerva. She wants to be pardoned and let out of prison. Minerva says, no, we have to be leaders. We have to continue with the struggle inside prison. All right? So for the third column, I want you to talk to a partner about whether you think it was effective. If this was the author's goal, they want us to understand and feel sympathetic towards Maria Theresa's experience. How successful is the author in doing this? All right, so talk to your partner and fill out that last column for this row about Maria Theresa's diary. Okay, you have 1 minute. So you're just completing the line about the diary. In the middle, you have the explanation. The author wants us to understand her experience from her point of view. All right, so John, ask you a question. Yeah, so right here we have a summary of why.
She came in trying to be strong like Minerva. The author kind of conveys this.
Here, let me show
The
you.
author kind of conveys this message of how Maria Theresa isn't as strong as Minerva. So she breaks down in prison, and she's not pregnant now as much pride as Minerva.
All right, so to clarify,
So she doesn't.
we have the
She's kind of
first
weakened.
two rows filled out
She has to
here.
she has to get out.
You're filling out this part right now. Okay, good part. How well does
How do
this
you
create
feel about
meaning
it?
for the reader?
I think it
How well
shows
do you
how,
think the author does
like, she's only
in
saying
helping
part of
us
the
feel
story,
sympathetic to Maria
like
Theresa?
what she wants to remember,
All right?
like, compared to what the other theses are saying. I think it shows you she wants to remember.
What part of the table was? So I want to
She's
show
not
you.
saying the whole story.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's the lack of pride. That's not. She can't say the whole story, but that's what if it was Minerva? She can do it. Yeah.
Why didn't you try it?
Have we So what do you think? Why?
You gotta do that part.
So if the author wants us to understand her experience in prison, do you think that she was successful in doing that? Like, do you feel like you got to know what Maria Teresa is going through or not?
Yeah, that's what
To a certain limit, yeah.
To a certain limit? And so talk to me a little bit more about the limit.
Because she didn't exactly speak on what happened. Like, she kind of hid it. She gave like an idea of something really bad happened, but she didn't really exactly say what happened.
Because why didn't she really exactly say it?
I guess the pages would turn out. Like, she told her sister Pasha, and Pasha wanted her to speak on it, but she didn't.
Good, yeah. So I think that's an important thing to say. So it created meaning in a certain way, to a certain extent. You felt like you knew what was happening in terms of how she felt. But then in certain key events, pages were torn out, and maybe it was hard to tell as the reader, right? So it's maybe that created less meaning. So you're evaluating to what degree you think it was helpful. Yeah, sorry.
She has flashbacks from the time. This one's like he's pathetic for her.
And you gotta see.
She has other stuff.
It's like this facade that she's like in her and she's like full of pride. And then we see that when she's in jail. We see her true person. Like, yeah, that's it.
She just wants us to get her to know her side in a different view. She's telling the story, so it's different. Like more details.
It's just a videotape of lesson, so we can reflect on it later. All right. Yeah. All right. So we're going to move on to the next two. Before we move on, I want two people to share what you wrote for the authors, how well the author does this. What is the effect on you of the author making the decision to have diary entries? All right. So Andy and Will, I need you to be quiet. What is the effect? Do we appreciate it as the reader? Is Julie Alvarez, is she successful in getting us to sympathize with Maria Teresa by writing in this style? What do you think, Shira? So it seems like classified information, so it seems like we're getting invited into this secret. Yeah, absolutely, good. That is, it's a very thoughtful way to analyze why it would be a diary. Like, why would the author put it into a diary? It feels secret, right? You're not supposed to be able to read someone's diary. Very good. All right. So it feels more interesting and exciting. Lamar, you can pop it down above here. Good. So the next two I want us to think about, and if you have another style that you noticed, you can add that. I want us to at least add these two to our list. Are these two, all right? So there are flashbacks from Dee Dee. So copy that down onto the left of your chart. She talks about her life in the past. There are whole chapters where we see her with this gringa interviewing her. And she's talking about what's happened in the past, and we see flashbacks. And we learn that the sisters die right at the beginning of the book. Usually, you build up to that. in a novel, but we learn that all the other sisters died right at the beginning. So we want to think about why. Why